Yeah, I think last time you took me on this road 20 years ago, I crashed right around this point and flew over the handlebars.
Welcome to a special version of the podcast in which my longtime friend Ludovic joins us. We have just ridden the Belgian Waffle Ride 96 hours ago. The Wafer, which is 78 miles, the middle distance. Ludovic, how are you doing? Have you recovered yet?
The good thing is it's 4 days later, 5 days later now, so it feels a lot better in the legs than it did the next day. I can tell you that, Eric.
And I guess too, to continue to set the stage, if you're not familiar with this ride race, it's a mixed terrain. So you have about half of it is on the road, and then half of it is in the dirt. And then there is a long distance ride, which is 128. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Ludo. And then the short distance around 50.
That's right. 50K and just over too many miles, 120 plus.
I had the I went ahead and GoPro'd the whole thing, so I thought Ludovic and I could sit down, recap it, see how we were going. You guys are watching us roll out and get ready for the first major climb. Ludo, what were your thoughts rolling out and getting ready for this climb?
The person in front here is Rachel. She's one of my coworkers, and I knew that this first climb was going to be quite long. Looking at the course profile, I was worried as one of the not so nimble riders of the group that it was going to be a long, long way up, and it was a long way up. It seemed like it just never ended.
We're rolling into this quite fast. I will say I was super excited. It's been about 10 years since you and I have had the opportunity to do an event together. So going to the start line, I was super excited, really honestly grateful. Like you picked me up in the morning. We did the car ride over at 5:50 or some, ridiculously early hour. So I was super excited, like you, perhaps undertrained. And so by the time we got to the start line, I was pretty nervous.
Yes, given that my bike was in pieces the day before for like the third time that week, I think is a good indication of how nervous I was as well about this particular race or ride. I think we've come to, over the years, tackle challenges that are perhaps above our fitness levels in general, and so looking at these daunting rides or races or runs, whatever they might be, is usually more of a exercise in self-confidence and trying to get to the finish line more so than really a race. But I like that you still call it a race, Eric.
Fair enough. And it should be noted too, kind of what we're trying to do here is that we're a couple of, I would like to say mid-packers, but honestly, the truth is we're back of the packers, having fun out here. And so this is a way to experience and understand maybe what the Belgian Waffle Ride is about from that perspective. You can see this is technically the first dirt or gravel section, which I'm excited to talk to you, Ludo, about in terms of like kind of the difficulty and where you landed. One of the things I want to point out is that the race bunches up. Like you saw us as we went over that step, the race bunched up. I was hoping that it would spread itself out a little bit more with that climb. That didn't happen so much.
This footage right here is a testament to the kind of traffic that we experienced, and probably like 10 miles in, the slow crawl over the one fence where you have to physically jump over and carry your bike. You see here trying to take a shortcut, physically having to carry your bike over. There's no bunny hopping over this one, Eric.
No, definitely not. This was the first aid station. I would have rolled through this completely in retrospect, Ludo. I don't know. We stopped and got water.
It was a conscious decision. I really didn't want to carry that much water up that first big climb. At this point, marginal gains make a difference for me. So knowing that the next aid station after that was 20 miles out, I felt that it was warranted. But in retrospect, I would do it differently next year.
You say that, but honestly, you're the strongest rider in our group of four. So I don't know how to come to that. Um, and now we've arrived. It was a short stint to maybe the first main gravel section, which we're on here, and you can kind of see it's challenging from the amount of people that are here.
It's you definitely have to make your way through. The single track portion was just, wheel to wheel. And it's not like because we're going fast or drafting. It's just literally because you have to wait for the river crossing and people to go through one by one. There's another comment. We kind of missed it because we went over it quickly, but that first descent into gravel, for those who had eagle eyes, will notice the litter of the water bottles that pretty much were popped off the 1,000 or so riders in front of us that had lost them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I got the vibe now, and this is interesting, kind of contrasting and comparing our experience. I will say, for where I was in the pack, perhaps had a bit more mountain biking experience. And I got the vibe as a whole, the race did not have very much mountain biking experience. And as a result, there were quite a few crashes. I would say that is an opportunity that if you want to like get into this, it is definitely a race that allows you to kind of jump in and just do the first without a lot of mountain biking experience. And if you just take it slow and ride conservatively through specifically dirt corners, you're going to be fine.
I agree. I think we couldn't be more different in our experience in terms of mountain biking experience. You having grown up on these roads and me being able to count on my fingers how many times I've ridden off of pavement in my life. It was very doable in these first several sections. Other than that river crossing, which you can see quite a bit of mud and even some twigs hanging off of my bike right there.
I like that. And right, I believe we pointed out, but I know we're rolling pretty fast. So Ludo is on the green bike, and he pops up quite frequently. Rachel on the blue bike, and then Daniel on the black bike, and then I am going to be on the yellow bike, but you won't see me till later in the film when we swap, when Ludo takes the GoPro footage. This is, go ahead.
This section was lovely. You can see the Lake Hodges on the right-hand side, just a beautiful landscape. And you can see because we had so much rain also in San Diego this first quarter of the year, all the flowers blooming in left and right. So really the scenery was just amazing. And then being able to look over this landscape rather than just road was really refreshing for a bike ride.
And for me, this section is super nostalgic. I've never done it on a gravel bike, but I've ridden this on a mountain bike too many times to count as I grew up in this area. So it was cool. It's been 20 years, but the trail more or less stays the same. I remember most of the turns. So it was quite a bit of fun.
We finally regrouped around here. This is maybe like 20 some miles in, I believe. We had been separated and luckily been able to get ahead of I think our first clean air ahead of a pack. And because of that gap, we were able to really roll a little more fast. You can see here the line of the four of us going through these fields. And it was just really pleasant to finally be out of that rough, heavily congested single track from the first part of the race.
I felt, Ludo, like we were closer together. And then I watched the GoPro footage back, and we give each other quite a bit of room. I'm really comfortable riding behind you on road, just because we've done it so much in drafting. But I noticed it's much spicier with the dirt.
Agreed. I also think the GoPro makes it look like we're further back than we actually are. But I think you're actually following decently close.
Well, well, it it is quite difficult. We are still definitely headed out, so we haven't made the turn to come back yet. And I will say, at this point, I'm already starting to feel it in my legs. It was a big day on the bike. It took us about 8.5 hours to finish, to give you guys an idea of the time frame. Now, Ludo, I think you and I had the most gravel tiered or most off-road tiered bikes, and the other two, it was kind of really whatever you had is what we brought. So Ludo and I just happen to have gravel bikes with really wide tires, 40 millimeters, which is probably the max width that you'd want to run for this. What did you think about your bike, Ludo?
I, you know, I really enjoyed it. It was just quite comfortable with the wider tires. I think we paid dearly for it on the road sections in terms of efficiency, but on this section right here, which is kicked up, you'll see the riders start to just pop off the side of the road, and us being able to just with the traction still climb through all this steep terrain. And you can see it. It's been wet. The road is a little muddy here, and the traction was great. So in terms of comfort, it was an A plus. And how did you feel with your bike, Eric?
I mean, the reason why I chose it is because I have it. So that's. But that being said, it's an amazing bike. My gravel bike is one of my favorite. I would have ran really narrow tires had I had them available. So
hindsight is 2020, Eric.
Isn't that the truth? I don't know. Right. There was a lot of talk the day before at the expo of like, who should be on what tire, but I don't know that people who are finishing in our time are making too many changes here.
Let's just say it would have had very little impact on my overall performance if I had run 3 or 4 millimeters shorter, less wide than I actually did. I mean, and maybe to give you credit, you've ridden your bike out in some dirt roads before internationally, right?
Correct. Yeah, this bike went to Costa Rica with me. So, and it was very much like this type of terrain, on road, off road, steep, not overly technical, like this route. This point in the race with this big pack that goes by, so they are in front of us. We know we're going to be on the road, and we are really excited to be off the dirt and the rattling and on the road. That being said, this descent lasts much, much longer than I was hoping for. So I started not looking for our turnaround point.
It's true that our average speed on the gravel or on the dirt, whatever section it was, it just ended up being slower despite us, I feel, pedaling decently hard on this section. And seeing those people go back the other way is just depressing, knowing that you still have another 5 or 6 miles to go.
I do want to give a shout out. The terrain is absolutely beautiful. It was a great day to ride. Overcast the whole time, which really saved us.
Doing this in 80-degree heat would have just been miserable. And it would have been miserable right here at this aid station that actually that had pretty much no water. They were pumping it out as the cyclists were coming in, and we were thinking to ourselves, is this the end of the road right here for us or not? That's Becky right there.
That's right. Those are my parents showed up. They're off to the side. They gave a quick wave, and then we were on again. So that aid station was the turnaround point, the halfway. Ludo, how were you feeling halfway through the race?
My back was hurting so bad. I took out my Allen wrench and moved my seat 2 or 3 millimeters forward because I thought there was no way I was going to be able to keep going.
Oh man, that sounds like a desperate Hail Mary to try to finish.
And I knew this hill was coming because I had climbed it before with the boss of our company, and I think we averaged something like 4.5 miles per hour on this hill. It's just painfully steep.
We were definitely hurt. It was a mixture of feelings, of emotions. Happy to be on the road, but a really tough hill. This is an interesting point. So we get stopped on the race, and the long race, the Waffle, is rejoining us. That was the lead pack that just blew by us. It was a good thing that they stopped us, but it was amazing to see how fast they could go, especially relative to us.
We have to comment that they are 40 miles deeper into the race than we are. Maybe more than 40 miles at the same time.
It's it's impressive to watch them. And now through the back half or the back third of the race, the Waffle Riders are riding through us the whole time. And it got to be a really cool experience, though, to see, like, they were all real positive, and we tried to pull off the road and just let them go. You know, you kind of have to let these guys do their thing. And it was just really cool to see them.
They were probably 100 so riders past us, and they were just the top of the top of the long race, because it wasn't the Wafer people who were passing us. It was really the Waffle, the guys who were doing the long day in the saddle, and they were fast and looked much fresher than us, given how many miles they had already covered.
Yeah, it was definitely humbling. I think the group was not thrilled that we were going back on gravel here. I think that they were very excited that we were moving quickly on road, but I thought, Ludo, you really, for how few off-road rides you had, are like, here you're making it through this section no problem.
It's I will say that my confidence increased quite a bit after riding to work a couple times last week through some terrain very much like this. And day one and day two, I thought to myself, what is this? How unprepared I am. And I think it's really good to get a little bit of experience. I think it goes a long way. And I think also it's reachable for general audience, anyone who's never done this before. It doesn't take much to, be able to complete something like this. Obviously, it's going to be hard to replace the decades of experience you have mountain biking. But I find it approachable to a certain level.
Sure. And like I would say, I would trade my mountain biking experience for fitness any day of the week for this one. Now, are you still sore, Ludo? What's your recovery status? We're about 4 days out from the race.
I'm dreaming of doing this again next year, but at the same time, I'm not ready to get back in the saddle just yet. So
right. The quote with the marathon is that you can't, I really try to make it up and over this rock here, and it just can't get it. Isn't the quote with the marathon that you have to forget about your last one before you sign up for the next one?
That sounds right about right. I still feel like deeply sore, like not superficially not, but like deep in my muscles a little bit. So I'm not quite ready to get back on the bike yet. How about you?
Same. It was a lot of fun. This instance, this scenario, I caught it on tape. So you could see, I do want to explain what just happened is that the fast riders are going so fast. They have people that are, in this case, this young man's mother, who is handing him water bottles. And I think, do you remember, Ludo, was there a confusion over water versus electrolyte?
That's exactly right. And he wanted the water, and then she handed the wrong bottle, and then she's like, give it this bottle. And he's like, I just wanted the water. Just like freaked out. And I mean, there's no blood going to his brain. The poor guy was just tired and exhausted, and he was doing the long ride too. And I just told his mom, really inside, he was deeply thankful. He just couldn't express it.
Which got an enormous laughter from the crowd. Everybody. To which the mom responds, "Don't worry, I've got 3 boys. I'm used to it." And of course, that got a reaction. I told my own mom, who is the mother of 3 boys, and she couldn't stop laughing. So all around.
I will say the volunteers tended to be very into it and quite jovial about the experience. I think we'll see a couple of fun experiences later with some volunteer interactions.
Well, I came into it with, really, I knew this race was around and had existed, but just I was not prepared for the level, how difficult it was, and the tier of rider that does it. And it is one of the things that's really cool is to see when the elite riders are riding through, the volunteer, the expectation is that they're gonna run over and hand them if they want water or Coke, and those elite riders just won't stop, which is a big departure from us, but very cool to see.
I had never had someone refill my water bottle for me before. I thought that's something I just did, but because we were in that pack on the way back with like the intense people, they hadn't seen many riders just yet. I felt like we had a different level of service.
Right, right. We got confused a few times for elite riders, but it made it for a lot of fun.
I felt that those kinds of sections that were like very rocky, like consistently were just so rough on the handlebars. You can even see here with the stabilization, despite the stabilization, still the video shaking quite a bit. I mean, how are your arms and your forearms, Eric, here?
My wrist ended up being pretty sore. Yeah, you kind of jump around a lot, and the credit to the GoPro, which is like really bringing us great quality footage here. It is fairly rocky. So this is me. Our group is pretty tired of the dirt, and I wanted to see what it's like to jump on one of these elite riders, these waffle guys' wheels, and just to see how fast they're riding through it, which is insanely impressive.
I was amazed you even were able to hold on for more than a few seconds. I mean, we're 50, 60 miles in here, and you're just keeping up. Like, where did you get the energy from?
Well, see, here's the problem, right? Is that as soon as we get into a little bit of an uphill, any uphill whatsoever, I get popped right off this guy's wheel, and there's no recovering from that. So
I wish we had the voiceover so we could hear you just breathing just so deep.
I do think I paid for this later. I was burning quite a few matches, and we had quite a bit of climbing left, but I was having fun. So, and I think already this is the small little incline that once he gaps me and I'm off the wheel, I think that's it. He was a nice guy though. I don't.
He was looking back. I wonder if he was expecting you to do some pulls, Eric.
You know what he told me? He goes, "Hey, if you need to pass me, go ahead." And I was like, "I'm fine right here. Thank you."
Again, you have home court advantage on these roads, right?
It's true. It's true. On that small little incline too, I was trying to push real hard to catch back up, and you could tell I was so exhausted by the time I got to the top, and I knew it was there. I just couldn't. I just didn't have the power to keep up with them. So
Wasn't just you, Eric.
that's very kind. At long last, we switched the GoPro. Ludo's now has the GoPro on, and you can see that's me off in the distance descending.
Yeah, I think last time you took me on this road 20 years ago, I crashed right around this point and flew over the handlebars.
Okay. Okay, so you're having memories, having flashbacks.
Fortunately and unfortunately.
Would you have trained more, Ludo, given what you now know?
I mean, universally, I think the answer to that question is yes, no matter the situation.
Okay.
It in this particular one, I had ridden with Rachel and with Daniel before, and I knew we were all in for a hard day. To me, the training would have just, I think, helped not feel as hurt the next day. I don't think it could have gone much faster. Whoa, Eric, you almost made it.
I can't. I'm so bummed. I just couldn't. It was such a big step. But I wanted to put this section in here. We get a chance to, I get my one chance to shine and highlight a little bit of my gravel riding. The rest of the time, I'm kind of off the back of the group.
I think we'll notice, like, I was trying to keep up with you as close as possible, but given like how far you are compared to what we were seeing earlier in the video, you can kind of tell that these sections were a fast and also kind of up, down, left, right, like over rock, and very blind corners all the way through.
It is, and it didn't help matters. We walked most of this because we were in line in the when we were coming out, so it was it was quite an experience. Everything was coming pretty fast.
Yeah, and you can see here tired riders on the side of the road, people with flat tires, and us being able to just kind of power through. But yeah, the one thing that struck me about this particular section was the amount of routes that we had to go through, and like the combination of that with the rest of the terrain.
Absolutely. And I think this is us rolling into an aid station. I am so happy that that was a huge gravel section that we finished. And you can see at this point how tired I am. I have this, like, I want to say rejected saunter. You see it several times.
Yeah, let's say your smile is not so big right there. You're looking for somewhere to sit. I think that's one of the lead women, right? Passing us right there.
I think so. We got quite a cool, and that was like number 2 or 3 right there. We
Yeah.
got quite a cool view of the race, a front row seat to the leaders.
You can see it here. She's running with the Coke after the rider opening it.
She gets it to him. Don't worry.
Yeah, that was, I mean, again, like we're what at this point, what 60 miles in, and those women are passing us, and they're 100 miles in, 105 miles in. It's just like outstanding how much ground they've covered in the same amount of time.
Yeah, and in my head, I'm thinking we've got a solid 18, 20 miles to ride, and I am exhausted. So this last stretch is a challenge, mostly uphill. Here's a brief, flat or semi-flat part where we get to cruise along.
You can see in the background the side of Lake Hodges where we were just biking. We've climbed all out of that, both through dirt and through road, and it's just punishingly up and down the entire day.
One flat tire out of our group of 4 on the road, not off-road. And I think I was the only one running tubeless. So there you go. We had a pretty good ratio.
I think an excellent ratio, and I think we would have been on the side of the road a lot longer had it not been for you be able to change that stubborn tire, Eric.
I didn't know if Rachel wanted to do it, and then she kind of acted like she wanted help, and then I kind of stepped in. Being a part-time bike tech kind of helps out here. And if you notice on this one, I kept this whole clip in here because I just walked through this entire aid station. I am too defeated, and I've had so much gel and sugary sports drink. There's just nothing. I don't know. At this point, there's nothing left to help me, so I walk on through.
Were you ready to rebound?
I was just so exhausted. I couldn't even be bothered to get more. I already had enough gels. That guy was less than thrilled that the Coke can got thrown at him.
He was a good sport about it.
He was. This marks the final long climb, although it's an enormous climb up Double Peak. Ludo, it looked like you paced yourself pretty well for this final. No, like in the back of your mind, you knew this climb was coming.
I knew this mine was coming, and I just found a cadence that I was happy with, and I just tried to make it work. As you can see here, I'm just weaving left and right up the road to try to cut the angle a little bit. People are walking. The GoPro's a little deceiving, but this was just so steep.
I really like the horizontal riding. It's an excellent move. And we're not even on the proper hill yet. So
No, I would call this like the lower half or the lower third of the hill itself.
Oh, yeah. I think at this point though, we were all hurting and we were all there. And here I am walking at the steepest part. Daniel's up ahead walking as well. I mean, it's really tough, especially given how many miles we have on our legs.
We've climbed this hill probably for a good 30 minutes now from the bottom of Hodges to get to this point. It's been quite a hill climb.
It's a fun event though. You can see how well it's marked. I don't know. I thought it was marked really well the whole time, that there were more than enough aid stations.
The traffic control was excellent from the local fire and police departments. I felt very safe overall. They closed the trails for at least a good part of them, so we didn't have to worry about cross traffic or people coming back the other way who weren't part of the race. I thought that was all very, very nice.
It was a big crowd, a big rollout.
I think if we pan back out to that first scene, it was a couple, maybe like 3,000 riders. What do you say?
In that neighborhood, absolutely. I was really proud that both of us rode up this, just by the way.
They really used every single foot of vertical space they had that we could climb to make us climb to the tippy top of Double Peak. No vertical
That descent,
wasted.
that descent, I think everybody was so tired. We were all taking it so slow and so carefully. No one wanted to crash like this late in the race. It's a final gravel section, which you've done on road tires, right? On a road bike.
Mistakenly, unfortunately, yes, I did it on the road bike. Um, I will say it was nice to have. I can see maybe throughout the race that the ground is a little bit moist from the humidity that we had. We had a little bit of rain earlier this week, and so instead of having overall dusty conditions, it was nice to be able to ride this with a little more traction. I mean, how did you feel, Eric, finally coming down this hill, getting off that last gravel section, knowing it was the last gravel section?
I just like my legs were so fried at that point. I was so excited to be rolling in at the finish line. They do kick us up this small hill right here, and you can see Ludo. It's steep enough that Ludo's weaving again.
It, I was just cursing left and right. This was just a mean hill to add at the end. We knew where the starting and finish line was. It was just around the corner. It was absolutely unnecessary to have to do that additional 75 feet of vertical.
This is us rolling back through the start line. And then there's a little bit of like a cyclocross course that we go through.
A gravel and here a pretty big drop. Like into the mud section was quite deep.
I was concerned that I was going to go over the handlebars here, 77 miles into a race.
As you can see, we're sprinting for the finish line.
And with that, an excellent ride, an excellent event. I don't know, Ludo, I had an excellent time riding with you. I can't wait till the next one. Any closing thoughts on your end?
No, I think like you said, like this was like a cool experience to do. I'm really glad we did it, and yeah, I look forward to continuing to add to our storybook of fun and outlandish experiences together.